In the year 654, a week-old baby girl lay dead in her cradle inside the imperial palace of China. The mother stood over the tiny body, her face calm, her eyes dry. She did not scream. She did not weep. She simply waited. When the emperor arrived and found his daughter lifeless, this woman pointed her finger at the empress. "She was the last one in the room," she said. "She killed our child out of jealousy." The emperor believed her. Within months, the empress was arrested, tortured, and executed in one of the most horrific ways imaginable. But historians would later uncover a disturbing possibility. The mother herself may have strangled her own infant daughter. Not out of madness, not out of grief, but as a calculated move to destroy her rival and seize power. This woman would go on to rule over 50 million people for nearly half a century. She would poison her own sons. She would build a secret police force that tortured thousands. She would become the only female emperor in over 3,000 years of Chinese history. This is the story of how a 14-year-old concubine climbed over the bodies of her rivals, her lovers, and even her own children to sit on the dragon throne. The year was 624. A total solar eclipse darkened the sky over China. In the province of Shanxi, a baby girl was born into a wealthy family. Her father was a timber merchant who had helped the founders of the Tang Dynasty rise to power. In return, they showered his family with riches and titles. But wealth meant nothing to this girl. Unlike other daughters of nobility who learned embroidery and music, she demanded books. She learned to read and write. She studied history, poetry, and the art of politics. Her father, breaking every tradition, encouraged her. When she was just a child, a famous fortune teller visited her family. He studied her face and made a prediction that would echo through centuries. "This child will one day rule the realm." Her father laughed. A woman ruling China? Impossible. In Confucian society, a woman's place was to obey her father, then her husband, then her son. The idea of a female emperor was as unthinkable as a hen crowing at dawn.
But this girl had other plans. At 14, imperial eunuchs arrived at her home, searching for beautiful young women to serve Emperor Taizong. When they chose her, her mother wept bitterly. But the girl turned to her mother with cold certainty and said, "How do you know it is not my fortune to meet the Son of Heaven?" She entered the Forbidden City as a 5th-rank concubine, the lowest tier. Her duties were simple: change the emperor's sheets, wash his clothes, wait in silence. 28 women stood between her and the emperor's attention. She was nothing, a servant, a nobody. But she watched, she learned, she waited. Emperor Taizong was a warrior king, still mourning his dead empress. He paid little attention to new concubines, but he noticed this one, not for her beauty, but for her sharp mind. He made her his personal secretary, giving her access to state documents and political secrets. She sat in the shadows of the throne room, observing how power really worked.
And then she did something unthinkable. While tending to the dying Emperor Taizong, she began an affair with his son, the Crown Prince Li Zhi. In Chinese law, this was incest. If discovered, both would have been executed. But she calculated the risk. The old emperor was dying. The young prince would soon hold all power, and she intended to be at his side. In 649, Emperor Taizong died. By ancient custom, all childless concubines were sent to Buddhist convents to become nuns for the rest of their lives. At 25 years old, this woman had her head shaved and was locked away in Ganye Temple. Her political career, her dreams of power, all seemed finished. But she had planted a seed. The new emperor, Li Zhi, now Emperor Gaozong, could not forget her. 2 years later, he visited the temple to burn incense for his dead father. When he saw her in her nun's robes, both of them wept. The flame between them had never died. Back at the palace, Empress Wang was watching her husband closely. She had no children, and a rival concubine named Lady Xiao had already given the emperor a son. Desperate, Empress Wang made a fatal mistake. She secretly helped bring the former nun back to the palace, hoping to use her as a weapon against Lady Xiao. It was like inviting a viper into her bed. The woman returned to the palace as a second-rank concubine. She played her role perfectly. Humble, grateful, obedient. She flattered Empress Wang. She served Lady Xiao tea with a smile.
To your health, sir.
Within months, she had given the emperor 2 sons, securing her position. Within a year, both Empress Wang and Lady Xiao had lost the emperor's favor. But that wasn't enough. She needed them destroyed. In 654, she gave birth to a daughter. The baby was healthy. The empress visited the child's chambers to see her, a routine courtesy. She left after a few minutes. Shortly after, the baby was found dead, strangled in her cradle. The mother accused Empress Wang. The emperor was devastated. Grief turned to rage. Rage demanded justice. To this day, historians debate what really happened. Did the baby die of natural causes? Sudden infant death was common. Or did this mother, calculating, ruthless, desperate, kill her own newborn daughter to frame her rival? The darkest accounts say she waited until Empress Wang left, then wrapped her hands around her daughter's tiny throat and squeezed. Then she covered the body and waited for the emperor to arrive, her performance already rehearsed. Whether truth or legend, the result was the same. In 655, Empress Wang and Lady Xiao were arrested, stripped of their titles, and imprisoned in a remote corner of the palace. The concubine was crowned empress. But she wasn't finished with them yet. Months passed. Empress Wang and Lady Xiao rotted in their prison cells, surviving on scraps of food pushed through a small hole in the wall. They lived in darkness, with no windows, no visitors, no hope. One day, Emperor Gaozong felt a pang of guilt. Perhaps out of nostalgia, perhaps out of mercy, he visited the 2 women in their prison. Through the walls, Empress Wang cried out, "If the emperor still remembers us, please let us see the sun again." The emperor was moved. He considered pardoning them. The new empress heard about this. She confronted her husband, argued that any leniency would undermine her authority and embolden their enemies. the emperor surrendered to her will. What happened next would haunt Chinese history for centuries. The empress ordered both women executed, but not quickly, not mercifully. She had their hands and feet chopped off. Then their mutilated, bleeding bodies were thrown into giant vats of wine and left to drown slowly. As they screamed and thrashed in agony, the empress reportedly said, "Now these two witches can get drunk to their bones." Lady Xiao, in her final moments, cursed the empress. "In my next life, I will be reborn as a cat, and you as a rat. I will tear out your throat." From that day forward, the empress banned all cats from the palace. She moved the entire court from the capital Chang'an to Luoyang, claiming she was haunted by the ghosts of the two women. But there would be no escape from what she had done, only more blood. In 660, Emperor Gaozong suffered a massive stroke. He was left half paralyzed, barely able to speak or make decisions. His wife stepped into the void. She began ruling China from behind a silk curtain, issuing orders while her husband sat silent on the throne. She created a network of spies and secret police. Copper mailboxes were installed throughout the empire, encouraging citizens to report on each other anonymously. Those accused were dragged before special tribunals, tortured, and executed. Entire families were enslaved. Thousands died. When ministers tried to challenge her authority, she crushed them without hesitation. She executed 12 houses of the imperial family in a single purge. She changed her rivals' surnames to insults. The Wangs became vipers. The Xiaos became owls. By 666, she sat beside the emperor on a throne equal in height to his.
By these offerings to the
something
gods,
no
I claim
empress
divine
had ever
authority,
done.
becoming something
She made
more than
offerings to the gods alongside him. She was no longer just an empress. She was becoming something more. But the empress's greatest obstacles were not her enemies. They were her own sons. Her eldest son, Li Hong, was named Crown Prince. He was intelligent, compassionate, and popular. Everything a future emperor should be. But he made a fatal mistake. He opposed his mother. Li Hong discovered that his half-sisters, the daughters of the murdered Lady Xiao, were being kept under house arrest, forbidden to marry. He begged his mother to show them mercy. Instead, she showed him rage. In 675, Crown Prince Li Hong died suddenly at the age of 23. The official cause was illness, but whispers spread through the court. The empress had poisoned her own son with tainted wine. Her second son, Li Shen, became the new crown prince. Brilliant and scholarly, he led a team of historians to write commentaries on ancient texts. But he too grew wary of his mother's power. Rumors circulated that he wasn't even her biological son, that he had been born to her sister. The empress sensed his fear and distrust. She had books on filial piety delivered to him as a warning. When that didn't work, she accused him of treason and conspiracy to assassinate a court official. In 680, Li Shen was stripped of his title and exiled. 4 years later, when his mother's grip on power was complete, she sent soldiers to his place of exile. They forced him to hang himself. Her third son, Li Xian, different character, same pronunciation, became emperor after his father Gaozong died in 683. But he ruled for only 6 weeks before his mother deposed him for disobedience. She sent him into exile and placed her youngest son, Li Dan, on the throne as a puppet. Li Dan was never allowed to move into the imperial quarters. He never made a single decision. His mother ruled in his name while he lived as a prisoner in his own palace. One infant daughter, possibly murdered by her own hand. One son poisoned. One son forced to suicide. 2 sons deposed and exiled. This was the cost of her ambition. And still, it wasn't enough. In 690, at 66 years old, the Empress did what no woman in Chinese history had ever done. She forced her son to abdicate. She declared the Tang Dynasty finished. She founded a new dynasty, the Zhou, with herself as its first and only emperor. Not empress, not regent. Emperor. She created a new Chinese character for her reign name, a character that combined the sun, the moon, and the sky. She called herself Zetian, meaning emulator of heaven. She commissioned massive Buddhist statues carved in her own image. She demanded to be worshipped as a living god. And here is the uncomfortable truth.
The dragon is finally brought
She
down
was
after
an
half a century
effective
of rule.
ruler. Under her reign, China expanded its borders and conquered Korea. She reformed the civil service examination system, opening it to commoners for the first time. She reduced taxes on peasants. She promoted talented women to positions of power. Corruption declined. The economy flourished. But the terror continued. Her secret police grew more powerful. Her enemies, real or imagined, continued to disappear. Historians estimate that thousands were executed during her reign, their families destroyed, their names erased from history. In her final years, the Empress grew obsessed with immortality. She surrounded herself with Buddhist monks who promised eternal life. She took young male lovers, the Zhang brothers,
Your
who
beauty
were
is
barely
eternal,
in their 20s,
like the heavens
while
themselves.
she was in her 70s. They gained enormous power at court, becoming the gatekeepers to the throne. In 705, a group of officials had enough. They stormed the palace, murdered the Zhang brothers, and forced the 80-year-old empress to abdicate. Her exiled son returned to reclaim the throne and restore the Tang Dynasty. Months later, stripped of power, abandoned by her children, haunted by the ghosts of everyone she had killed, the empress died. That woman's name was Wu Zhao. History knows her as Wu Zetian, the sacred and divine empress regnant. She ruled China for nearly 50 years, first from behind a curtain, then from the dragon throne itself. She was the only woman in over 3,000 years of Chinese history to claim the title of emperor. When she died, she was buried beside her husband in the Qianling Mausoleum, one of the most magnificent tombs ever built. Outside the tomb stands a massive stone tablet, 6 meters tall, carved with dragons and phoenixes. But here is the final mystery. The tablet is completely blank. No words, no inscription, no record of her achievements or her crimes. Some say she left it blank out of arrogance. Her accomplishments were too great for words. Others say her son refused to write anything, not knowing whether to honor her as an emperor or condemn her as a usurper. Still others say she wanted future generations to judge her for themselves. But perhaps the most terrifying interpretation is this: there were simply no words in any language that could capture what she had done. The babies she may have killed, the sons she destroyed, the thousands she tortured, the empire she built. Empress Zetian, the woman who proved that in the pursuit of absolute power, there is no line that cannot be crossed, not even the blood of your own children. The wordless Stele, and the silence speaks louder than any epitaph ever could.